Now, let's talk security. But before I do that, I have a little update from my Friday article. Tony Koritz of A Minute to Midnight minutetomidnight.com posted an interview with John Holler on YouTube. John and Tony didn't say anything that would have violated any rational community guidelines, yet YouTube took the video down anyway. It was on the YouTube playlist that I published on Friday. So when you look at that playlist, look at the deleted video. That was it. They are really getting out the ban hammer and whacking us with it. Censorship is on the rise, and they are working as hard as they can to shut us down. Just notice one important difference between Tony's YouTube channel and a Megashock. The number of subscribers on Tony's channel is larger than mine. He has almost 46,000 subscribers. I have a tiny fraction of that number, just 1,700. Smaller channels can slide through the net of censorship better than the larger ones. Eventually, they'll take down my channel too, so we all need to be migrating to Rumble. You could go to BitChute, and I probably will do that too, but the neo-Nazis and other morons on that site give me the creeps. Anyway, let's go on with what I wanted to talk about. If you aren't a little spooked by the takedown of Parler and the latest thing on minutetomidnight.com, and by the blatant social media censorship and by the calls for violence against us from the left, you aren't paying attention. They really, really want to shut you down and ruin your life. And if they couldn't throw us all into re-education camps, well, if they could, they would. The good thing is that there are still limits to what they can do to us. Yes, they can make us miserable. Yes, they can harass us. Yes, they can censor our speech on social media. But we aren't anywhere near an American Gulag archipelago. It's coming, but we aren't there yet. For those of you who don't think that it's coming, you need to do more reading. We're following in the footsteps of the French Revolution, the Roman Revolution, the Chinese Revolution, all the socialist revolutions. We're following all of those. We human beings love to repeat history because we never learn. So read up on history. Now, where was I? Yes, threats to our liberty. The important thing for all of us to know is that we are heading down that road, and there will be events in our future that will accelerate the process. And I've talked about those events for years. But there is absolutely no need to panic. That's right. Don't panic. Yes, our world is on the road to complete collapse, but we haven't reached that moment where everything falls apart yet. So now is not the time to panic. In fact, panic is really only for those who have not been paying attention and not giving thought to the situation that they are in. Panic is for those who do not know that God is in control. So you should never need to panic ever if you are paying attention. Furthermore, it's not the government that you need to be afraid of. It's your neighbor. Your friends and your family also need to be a concern. The people closest to you will be the absolutely biggest threat that you will ever face when times get bad. As I have repeatedly said over and over for years and years, if you can't trust your neighbors, you need to get new ones. That's right. When things fall apart, you will need to know that you can trust your neighbors with your life, because a bad neighbor will come and take it. I just saw a video recently of a bad neighbor who was trying to do exactly that, break down a neighbor's door to steal, kill, and destroy. That video ended well, but your video might not. Here's that video.
Now at 11, a wild shootout between a suspect and a homeowner in Hesperia. That shocking scene playing out on a home security camera. The homeowner says he was awakened this morning by somebody trying to kick in his front door. The homeowner grabbed his gun, and then the two began shooting at each other through the door. Nobody was hit. The would-be intruder took off. He was later found and arrested by San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputies. At this point, no known connection between the suspect and the home, although we are told the two are neighbors.
That's a clip titled "Hesperia Homeowner Fends Off Intruder in Gun Battle Caught on Camera" from ABC 7. And all I can say is that's awful. And we will see more of this as the world crumbles. The neighbor in that video seems a bit insane, but insanity happens when times don't go the way that you planned, especially if you don't have a belief in God. Those who fear God, and yes, I mean F-E-A-R, fear, those people, those who fear God, tend to go less insane. At least, less insane than those who do not fear God. Unfortunately, just having Christian neighbors isn't good enough. There are lots of fake Christians that don't have a shred of fear towards God and don't feel obligated to obey Him very much. You can bet that faux Christians will forget all about Jesus when the going gets tough. So now is the time to take a good hard look at your neighbors and ask yourself if you can trust them not to take your life and the lives of those you care about. If you can't trust your neighbors, it might be time to move. Just make sure to ask God for direction before making any big decision. Now, let's talk about electronic security. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and I've been wondering about what you and I can do that we aren't already doing. So let me share a few things that you might or might not know, depending on what your background is. First, email communications are not secure. In fact, it is my understanding that most email transmitted between one domain and another is almost always wide open and in the clear. Government agencies and criminal networks, which can be the same thing, make it a point of monitoring common email ports and reading as much email traffic as possible to capture information that they can use. And it's a crime that so many email servers are allowed to transfer messages out of their domain without using secure encryption. Email servers could impose secure communications between one domain and another, but many of them don't want to. After all, as long as you don't know how vulnerable you are, you won't bother service providers with a demand to use secure email transmission. As long as you don't know how much risk there is, you won't complain and raise a fuss. Do people still use that word, fuss? But there are some things that you can do to make your email communications more secure. One of them is to always communicate sensitive information only within a domain. For instance, if someone wants to share their super secret pecan pie recipe with you, tell them to send it from their Gmail account to your Gmail account. Email sent within a domain, such as gmail.com, is generally secure. Sending something from Yahoo email to Gmail email is almost certainly not secure. Oh, and Proton Mail? Well, it's only secure within the protonmail.com domain. Just having a Proton Mail account is not enough. Everyone else that you send messages to needs to have a Proton Mail account for your communications to be secure. Otherwise, forget it. But there's also one more problem. All messages that are sent within a domain are still readable by the servers of that domain. No matter how secure that you think that your email service is, that service will always be able to read your messages. And having an account with a quote-unquote secure email service is like waving a big red flag in front of governments. Having a Proton Mail account is like telling everyone that you have something to hide. Second, you do not want email communications to be completely secure. To my absolute disgust, human beings are awful. Not all of them, maybe not even most, but there are enough human beings of uncertain parentage to make it impossible for you and I to have completely secure communications. My last job in Israel before moving back to the US was with one of the most secure email communications services in the world. Using their service, it was impossible to send a message to anyone without worrying that a criminal or intelligence service would intercept it and read what you had written. They couldn't do it. They used, the organization I worked for, they used public key infrastructure, PKI, and it is still an awesome technology that can ensure complete and utter security. In fact, this service was so secure that the criminal underworld started to use it openly. The good thing is that there was one exception to the security of their SafeMail's encrypted infrastructure. They could read all the email messages running through their system. SafeMail, the organization I worked for, didn't want to do that. They didn't want to read those emails, but they had to. Pedophiles, drug dealers, scammers, blackmailers, terrorists, and every other kind of evil under the sun have tried to use their service, only to get caught because their messages were being monitored. I remember when they discussed creating a special service that could not be monitored by them, but chose not to do that precisely because of all the evil that was trying to use their network. Now, I would trust my old boss at SafeMail, or I should say at safe-mail.net. I would trust him not to share my passwords or take advantage of any personal details that I would put in an email. He's a really good guy with lots of integrity. He certainly would not go running to the security authorities if I said mean things about the government, even the Israeli government. But I doubt that you can say the same thing about any of the other secure email providers that you might use. Oh, and if you want an example of how a persecuted group was able to communicate with its membership, look at the Falun Gong. I know exactly how they were communicating with each other. It has been 15 years since I was involved with SafeMail.net, so they probably have their own secure communications network. But in the early thousands, when the Chinese Communist Party was murdering the Falun Gong by the busload, they used the safe-mail.net network to talk to each other. The Chinese Communist Party would regularly attack safe-mail servers and take them down, but they could never break SafeMail's encryption. Everyone would tell my boss to go to the media about what China was doing to SafeMail servers, but he never did. He always assumed that the truth would get out all by itself. He was a great guy, but too much of a geek to do marketing really well. Having said that, I don't know if SafeMail is as good now as they were. It has been a while and their website hasn't changed much, and that's not a good sign. I even found some of the help files on that site that I wrote 15 years ago. I mean, I was good, but that good? Now, some have been altered, so any English errors you find are probably not mine. The interesting thing is that you could implement your own public key infrastructure and have utterly secure email communications. The information on how to do it is out there. The only thing that you need is the skill, a little programming ability, and a little money to make it happen. You could even sell your email service online. I'm curious about whether anyone actually wants to. Now, if you've gotten this far, I have only one thing left to say, and it's more important than everything else that I've said about maintaining personal security. Don't go paranoid. Seriously, paranoia will do far more harm than absolutely anything else. It would be better to stop communicating with anyone than to go down the road of paranoia. You might want to do that one day, stop communicating, but living in fear is not the way that God calls us to live. So please don't be fearful and paranoid. I know that they are out to get you, but it doesn't matter. God is literally in control of everything that is happening. You have nothing to fear if you hold him close. So be as wise as you can and do not be afraid. Enough said. That was a Shockcast short. If you want to help keep Omega Shock and the Shockcast alive, there's a link below that can help you do that. I am truly grateful for all of you who have helped this ministry continue. And if you would like to see the longer video that this Shockcast short comes from, click the link in the description section below, or you could just click that box up there.